We're studying IGCSE biology and we're continuing reproduction in plants. This is the third class on it. Now, today we're looking at the first thing we saw was in the last class that what are the functions of each of the parts of a flower's reproductive organ. Flower is the reproductive organ of the plants, yeah, and we realized that we had two things: the carpel and the stamen, the female organ, the male organ. In the female organ, we had the stigma, style, ovary, ovule. Male organ, we had anther, filaments. Fine. But what we need to realize is what are the other things here? We have the nectary, we have the receptacle, the flower stalk. Let's just recap that just a second. So anther produces, stores pollen grains, ovary produces the gametes, stigma. Manvi, you have written all of this, yes? Rachit, take a screenshot.
Yeah.
Tell me when you're done. Rachit, take a screenshot. Done. Now we're moving on. We have now the next thing we looked at was types of pollination. What is pollination, by the way? I don't think I told you this in the last class. Pollination. Pollination is, write the definition on your notebook, all of you. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from anther of stamen to stigma of carpel of let's say another, or let's say of stigma carpel of plant. Done. Same or another plant. Write this and tell me when you're done.
Two minutes.
2 minutes. You don't have this right here, the stamen, is just to tell you that it's the male organ, while the carpel is the female organ. Rachid, write this on your notebook as well, and then we'll start looking at the types of pollination that we have.
Yeah, sure.
Done. Come on, guys. Done. Let's continue. Now, the next thing we have are the types of pollination. There are two kinds of these. There are two kinds of these: self-pollination, and we also have cross-pollination. Now, what is the difference between these two? Self-pollination is when I'll tell you. This is the definition. Write it down. Pollen from one plant is transferred to the stigma of another plant of the same species. This is important. This is also important. The plant is different, not the same plant, but it is the same species. And actually, no, that's wrong. Just a second. Of same plant. Of same plant. That's self-pollination. Okay. Yep, that's better. The cross-pollination is this. Yep. Done? Tell me when you're done writing.
Can I have 2 minutes?
Take your time. Take your time. Ask me questions, whatever questions you may have as well, after you finish writing.
Answer.
Done.
Okay, but would it be considered cross-pollination if even if the plant does produce both male and female gametes, but then that plant's male gametes fertilize with another plant's female gametes?
Yes, but it has to be another plant, not the same plant. As long as it is another plant, then cross-pollination. Cross means another, self means same plant, right? If I have 2 plants here, let's make plants. Let's say a plant like this one. And I have another plant here. Now, if I realize that the flower on this guy, the flower on this guy is actually going from, okay. Now, the green lines are cross-pollination. Okay. On the other hand, the yellow lines are self-pollination. Clear?
Yeah.
So if it's 2 different plants, let's say plant A, plant B. As long as you're going to a different plant, there's both same species. But if it's the same plant, then it's self-pollination, different plant, then cross-pollination. But you need to be sure that you write same species always. That's important because different species cannot reproduce together. Different species cannot reproduce. We'll see why later in plants. Now, if you're done writing the definition of self and cross-pollination, we will talk about how self-pollination, how cross-pollination occurs. Now, there's one more thing you need to write in cross-pollination. The second point you need to write is depends on agents of pollination. What are these agents? Perhaps these secret agents of pollination. These are insects, birds, mammals, wind, and water. That's it. Now you need to know all these agents of pollination as well. So write them down. Rashid, Ayan, Manvi, have you finished?
Yes, sir.
Finished. Ayan?
Almost done, sir.
Okay, yeah, almost done.
Okay.
That's it.
Done. Now let's look over here. First thing we have is insect pollinated plant. Okay. Well, especially in our exams, we'll be focusing on insect pollinated. I think you also have water pollinated and wind pollinated and insect. These three. Let's focus on insect pollinated plant features. Now the first thing is anthers are inside the flower. They're stiff and firmly attached. So the main thing is this one, inside flower. Okay, that's important. Why are they inside flower? Because to be able to brush past the insects. These things. Now, next thing is the anther is also close to nectary. Please write down the highlighted parts if you haven't already. Next, the nectary are the things, these are the sweet things, the sweet liquid inside the flower, which attracts insects. Now, why does it do this? Why does it attract the insects? Because it attracts insects to brush past anthers. It has a nice scent. The animals they can't really see it. They can sense it. They can smell it. That it has a nice scent. Next things, petals are large and they're brightly colored. Or you don't need to write brightly here. Just a second. Cut the brightly part and write colorful. Large and colorful to attract insects. Next thing is the stigma is sticky. Now, one thing, I'll show you the thing right here, the diagram. Now, Rakshit, can you see this? The image of a flower. It's loading. Now, can you see it?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Now, this is an insect pollinated flower. Now, if you realize here, the red things, the yellow things you have here, those are the, what do you say, the stigma. They are sticky. Okay. As soon as the thing lands, as soon as the insect lands, these guys are going to take the pollens from them because they are sticky. The yellow parts here are sticky. So they're sticky. So when the insect lands, they can brush, they can stick the pollens when insect brushes past them. They're sticky. Next thing is the pollen grains themselves. The pollen grains of these plants have hooks or spikes. Hooks or spikes. Okay, they have hooks and spikes. Why do they have this? Why are they sticky? Large, sticky, have hooks and spikes. Why is this? Because they have to get stuck on this guy, or they have to stick to the fur or the coat of the bee. So then, when this bee flies to another flower, it will take the pollen grain with it. Is that clear, all of you? Any questions on this?
No, sir.
No, pretty easy. Let's focus on. I hope you have written this down in your notebook, have you? At least
Yes,
the
sir.
highlighted parts. Rashid,
Yeah, sure.
take a screenshot if you haven't. Because these are in the exam, these are about 6 marks.
Sure, I've written also and I've taken a screenshot too.
Perfect, good job. Now the next thing we have is wind pollination. Okay, wind pollination. How do they differ? Now they have the same exact things, but they're kind of different. How are they different? First thing first, they have dull petals. Okay, dull and small petals. Next thing is they have is no scent. They don't have it. 3, no nectary. 4, they have pollen is smooth and round. Finally, produce large amounts of pollen. That's the features of a wind pollinated flower. If I show it to you, just a second. This is what it looks like. This guy. So they have small, they're dull, they don't have colorful things, colorful patterns. These petals are very small, they don't even have usually, and they have no scent, no nectar. The pollens are smooth and round, they look like this. No hooks, nothing, not like this, but small and smooth. Not sticky, no hooks, nothing. And these guys produce hundreds, thousands of pollen, a lot more than the insect pollinated, so more than insect. Ayan, Manvi, Rachit, write this down.
Answer.
Good. Pollinated. I hope that's done. Any doubts here? Let's go
One
to.
second.
No, sir.
Now, there's a lot more here as well. Actually, just a second. We have anther and the stigma as well. First thing first, anther and stigma are. Let's write both of these, or. Hang out of flower. And let's say hang outside. Done. Next thing you need to know is stigma. Is hairy. Why is it hairy? To catch drifting.
Okay, so they can easily fly away.
No, the stigma isn't flying away. The stigma, the anther is flying away. The seeds are flying away, the pollens, not the stigma. What is it? Why is the stigma hairy? Because it has to catch the drifting pollen. Okay, so let's say you have a seed like this, perhaps something like this. I'll show you a diagram. This is what the seed looks like of some of the, let's say, some of the plants, some of the flowers. And on the other hand, you also have the other one, this one, the dandelion. Now these guys look like this, a lot of feathers on top and a seed hanging like this. Now when the seed is traveling, it will get stuck with the stigma. Because the stigma is hairy, it will catch the seed. That's all you need to care about. Fine. Now let's focus on the book for a second. If you've written this down, let's go to the book. Okay? Now, I want you to read this part. Start reading. Monday.
Yeah. Fertilization. After pollination, the male gamete inside the pollen grain on the stigma still has not reached the female gamete. The female gamete is inside the ovule, and the ovule is inside the ovary.
Okay. So what happens is, after the seeds, the gametes have reached the flower, what happens after that? The thing is, you have this, look over here. You have the stigma and the anther. Okay. After it reaches the stigma, that's not done. It's not done here. You have to go inside to the ovule. Let's make a black one. You have to go inside to the ovule. How does it happen? What happens, you'll realize it is that this pollen forms a tube to the ovule and reaches here. And this is where the fertilization takes place. Okay, and that is how the seed forms. This will this ovule will become the seed. So what's happening? The anther, let's say the pollen grain from the anther goes to the stigma, and from the stigma it goes down the style, makes a tube down to the ovule, and there is where fertilization happens. But how does this process happen? How does it go down from the stigma? Right, that can be a question, and that is a question. So let's solve that one here. Rachit, read this.
Yeah. If it has landed on the right kind of stigma, the pollen grain begins to grow a tube. You can try growing some pollen tubes. In activity 16.3, the pollen tube grows down through the style and the ovary towards the ovule. In figure 16.12, it secretes enzymes to digest a pathway through the style.
Right, if you look over here, this is how it's happening. So pollen grain falls here, and then it releases some enzymes. You don't need to know which enzyme, but you need to know there are some enzymes which it secretes, and that grows a pollen tube downwards. It grows and grows and reaches here. Through the style, it reaches the ovule, and it also goes into through the micropyle here, the opening right here. If you look over here, there's an opening. This opening right here is called the micropyle. Is that clear? So this is the micropyle, and through the micropyle it enters the ovule. I'm going to write this on the board. Just a second. Let's take a diagram of this, and let's go to fertilization. Now, when the pollen lands, the first thing that happens is pollen lands on let's say correct species of lands on stigma of correct species. The thing is, if let's say a different kind of pollen grain lands here, someone else of a different flower, the enzymes will not be correct to make the pollen tube. So this guy will not be able to make a pollen tube inside, while only the correct pollen grains will be able to make a pollen tube. Is that clear? Now, all of you, I need your mics on right now. Ryan, what will happen if let's say there are two flowers, this guy, that's one flower, and if you had a different flower which looks perhaps like this, now will they be able to reproduce? These are different flowers, different
Could you
species.
show the diagram once?
Okay, look, yeah. Now you have different species here, Ryan. Let's say this is species A, and you have species B, A and B. Now, if you had a pollen from this guy reach this flower, okay, and then let's say it lands on the stigma of this flower,
Yeah.
will it be able to grow a pollen tube downwards?
No.
No, right? Why not?
Because the pollen has landed on a flower of the same species.
It has to land on the same species. Also, the enzymes. You need the specific enzymes. Okay, so
Yes,
I'll write over here. Second step is pollen slips down, or let's just say grows a pollen tube downwards through the style using enzyme or just a second, secretes enzymes and grows a pollen tube downwards through the style. All right, and style and micropyle. Done. Now you should write this on your notebook. This is how fertilization happens in plants. Now, what happens after this? It enters ovule and fertilization takes place. That's the last step. Any questions, Manvi?
No.
Now, see, it's not the pollen grain which travels, the pollen. You should also know that. The pollen grain lands on the stigma, but the pollen travels downwards, not the grain. The grain is like a coat. Okay. Now, there's another thing. There are more than one ovule in a flower, and all of them contain something called the ovum. Right here, this one. That small thing right there inside the ovule is your ovum. You should know this. Now, there's a few more steps here. Let's look into that. Fourth step is the pollen fuses with ovum to form zygote. Right? What happens? The pollen nucleus fuses with ovum nucleus to form zygote. The fifth step is zygote divides by mitosis and forms a seed. Yep. Now, one more thing, which is number of ovules in plant tells us how many seeds are formed. Done. So the more the ovules, the more seeds are formed. Yeah, that means wind pollinated flowers have a lot more ovules than insect pollinated flowers. These last three things, these three are, or these three is the formation of seed. And all of this is fertilization. Now tell me when you're done writing. It's important to have your own notes. Writing makes things clear for you. You're going to realize doubts which you would not realize otherwise without writing. So writing is good. Any questions? I need progress. So Manvi, how much have you written?
All of it?
All of it. Have you written? Finished?
Yep.
Ayan, Rachit,
I wrote them also.
wrote them all.
Answer.
Now we need a little more information on seed formation. So instead of this, I'm going to take it downwards and we'll look at seed formation again from the book. Because I think I do remember there's a lot more detailing here. Let's see, seeds right here. Ayan, start reading from here. Seeds.
Once the ovules have been fertilized, many of the parts of the flower are not eaten anymore. These the sepals, petals, and stamens have all done their job. They wither and fall off.
Okay, yep. Just a second before you move on. I want you to add this right here. Perhaps right here. Right here. Just make us number 7. Number 7, and write down that the sepals, petals, and stamen fall off over there. Petals, sepals, and stamen wither and fall off. That's the last thing about fertilization. Tell me when you're done writing.
Done.
Now, Manvi, continue reading from here. Inside the ovary.
Okay. Inside the ovary, the ovules start to grow. Each ovule now contains a zygote, which was formed at fertilization. The zygote divides by mitosis to form an embryo plant.
Okay. And the ovule is now called a seed. Right? Okay. Now, just a thing. In this, the number 5. I want you to remove number 5 from your writing. Cut it out. Tell me when you're done. Okay. Remove number 5. We'll rewrite the seed formation. Okay. Continue from here, Manvi.
Okay. The ovule is now called a seed. The integuments of the ovule become hard and dry to form the testa of the seed. Water is withdrawn from the seed so that it becomes dormant.
Okay. Rachit, continue.
Yeah. The embryo consists of a radicle which will grow in a root and a plumule,
No,
which will
plumule.
grow into a shoot. Figure 16.13. The seed also contains food for the embryo. In a bean seed, the food stored in 2 creamed color cotyledons. These contain starch and protein. The cotyledons also contain enzymes. Surrounding the cotyledons is a tough protective covering called the testa. The testa stops the embryo from being damaged and it prevents bacteria and fungi from entering the seed. The testa has a tiny hole in it, the micropyle. When a seed has been separated from the plant near the micropyle, there is a scar, the hilum, where the seed was joined to the pod ovary. The ovary also grows. It is now called a fruit.
All right. Ovary goes and it is called a fruit. Now, this whole chapter, I want you to. This whole thing is very important. The formation of the seed. Okay. There's no point in writing all of this down because you will have to revise this from the book. So please write down seed formation in your notebook, seeds formation, and write down page number 205. I'm going to keep this in your notes. I'm going to add this in your notes as well. But you should know where this is. 205. Just a second. Okay. I will just add it here. Now, some important things over here are that you have, let's say, some important things which we have here are that the sepals, petals fall off, right? The zygote forms embryo. Always, I need you to memorize this. Zygote forms embryo in every organism, right? There's nothing else. It doesn't form the seed, forms the embryo. The ovule forms the seed. Ovule becomes the seed. It's just called seed, it hardens. So what happens is ovule becomes seed. How does it become seed? It hardens. Is that clear? Now you should write this in your notebook. These 4 things. Zygote becomes embryo, ovule becomes seed. How does it become it? It hardens. Fine. Now, the seed has something called the testa. What does it have?
Testa.
Testa, right? Now, what is the testa? The testa over here is the protective layer. Okay. Now, okay, another question they may ask you, how does seed become dormant? How does it become dormant? Water is removed from seed. Okay, fine. Next thing is, you have 2 things, or let's say parts of seed. What are the parts of seed? You have the radicle, and you have the plumule, and you have the what was the other thing? The cotyledons, and you also have 2 more things, which are asked in the exam sometimes: the micropyle and the hilum. Now the radicle is roots or forms roots. Plumule forms shoots. Write all of this in your notebook. It's just a summary of, but you still have to read the paragraph in the book when you're revising for the exams. Cotyledons store food. Micropyle is basically, let's say it's an opening. Hilum is scar where seed separated from plant. Now, is this clear? Any doubts here? Ask me.
No, sir.
No. Now, one more thing is, which you need to write, separate from the seeds, is that ovary becomes, or just a second. Ovule becomes seed and ovary becomes fruit. I hope that's clear. The embryo has 2 parts: radicle, plumule, and the cotyledons. Now you should also make this diagram on your notebook, this part. Tell me when you're done writing. Now today we'll be finished with reproduction in plants. We just have one more thing remaining, which is germination. How does germination happen? What are the factors affecting germination? How does germination start? All of that. So finish quickly and then we'll go over there. Now, I kid you not, these things are about 8 marks in the exam. MCQ and theory. And this especially is in the MCQ. The zygote, embryo, this is again in the MCQ. But especially this part, the parts of seed, is in theory. I can give you a question, but not today. I'll give you an assignment on this with all the past paper questions. You can also buy the booklet of past paper questions if you want. But today we are finishing the chapter. Guys, come on.